Hey guys, we're finally going to build out those base traps that I've been talking about recently. We are going to build them using these concrete forms. These are these quick tubes. I picked this one up at Home Depot. They're roughly about $18. They come in a variety of different sizes, and that's about it. So let's get right to it. Think of this video today as more like a sounding board on some ideas. You guys can spin off of this, build things out how you want. I picked these tubes because I thought they were really accessible for everyone. Coming in less than $20 a tube, so it's pretty cheap. You'll see some of the tools I use here are more for just speeding things along. Like I'm using this laser because that definitely speeds things up on a number of different steps on this project. And next I'm just taking my razor and I'm cutting in here because it's going to save us some time for the next step. We could definitely do that with the razor if you need to, but ideal situation, just take out your jigsaw. You're going to save yourself about 10 minutes there. Now only if I could find the hole. Just like that, we've got it to the size we need. This is the quick and easy method if you don't have the tools, but I'm going to show you guys why you might want to go a different route here. You guys could use all kinds of things here. There's plenty of jigs for cutting perfect circles. We're going to use one in a little bit when we get into, when we're cutting more of the decorative piece. I'm going to use some maple on that part. But for this is just actually going to go into the base of this one. And I'm only putting the base in right now because I want to make these a little bit more rigid when we have to start cutting into this, making holes. These are actually really rigid and they hold together really well through cutting. But if you can add the base in, it makes it a lot more solid for that next step. This is definitely the look of someone who builds things like this in their head with no written plans. So, a problem you might run into if you guys go the budget route, we trace this out to make that bottom panel so we can get that, that true bottom so when we cut that it was solid. But this is not a perfect circle. So when you cut it, you're going to end up with, well, you're going to end up with something like this that's kind of like a circle, but not a perfect circle. And that might be all right for you if you're not really concerned about this just being perfectly round. But as I wanted it to be round and I have the tools, as you guys can see, I took out my router and the jig, circle cutting jig, and now we have a real circle. So this is the one we're gonna go with here. So let's glue in the bottom here. We don't have to go crazy with this part. I'm using, what am I using? Some Gorilla construction adhesive, which is plenty strong. I'm gonna staple this into place too so that I can just keep working here. Otherwise, I would need to wait for this glue to dry. What I'm suggesting to do here is, this is the bottom that was uncut with my jigsaw, so this is still nice and true. So what you do is you just kind of drop it in through the top and drop it in, I guess, like that. And you're gonna load your cannon. Glue off here. This stuff goes everywhere. It's like if you're doing a brake job, you need that brake grease. That stuff, I don't know, it finds a way onto all of your clothes at all times. Doesn't come off. Okay, as you can see, it's nice and flush on the bottom. I'm gonna put a couple of staples in, then I will beat it down the rest of the way. This side right here is perfect. Fixed. Now I actually have something hard to cut into on this thing because it's actually hard right here. It's not going to give. So when I'm cutting all the holes in this, it's not just going to be folding and misforming this tube. Believe it or not, we might make a base trap yet. We're just going to be cutting these every 3 inches. We're going to be creating kind of a grid pattern here. And you'll see what I'm doing. I have the laser on too. If I didn't have the laser, this would be kind of a total pain. And this is another one of those unnecessary steps, but it's something that I think is going to make this look better in the end. because doing it this way, we're gonna have even spacing between all the holes that I'm cutting here. And that'll give me a mark at the bottom. Go to the next one. When you guys build stuff, are you like me and you don't really come into it with a plan and you just build it all in your head and then you just kind of try to make it happen as it goes? Because that's typically how I go about these. I have an idea in my head what I want it to look like, and then I just wing it from there and how to make it happen. Problem with that is my projects tend to kind of have like a scope creep where they just keep growing as I evolve my ideas as I go. But I don't know, it's kind of fun that way. Some people do that, some don't. Different strokes for different folks. All I'm doing here is creating some straight lines based on the two marks I made on the top and bottom with my laser. And this is just going to give me a good grid pattern for some of the next upcoming steps here. This is what we're going to use to cut some holes in this thing. You guys could use anything here. You could cut panels out with a jigsaw. You could use a razor. I am using this because I want to have some accuracy with this. And my plan is that it's going to create sort of a grid pattern on here so that we leave a lot of space in between so that the structural integrity of this tube still remains strong. So I'll show you guys what I mean. And I already know it works because I already built the first one. Now to keep things simple, I'm just going to use these as a spacer to cut these. I'm going to go down the line on how I have these, and then I'm going to stagger them throughout the tube to keep the tube strong, but to have enough openings for this to work properly. This is definitely the least enjoyable part of this project. So just bear with me. Let's get through this. Well, that was not the funnest thing in the world, but thankfully that part is done. We got these cut, we're gonna clean these up. First we have to get the floor cleaned up because otherwise this is gonna get all over the fabric when I start to wrap these. Next, what we're gonna do is, if you look at this, the edges are kind of rough here. So we're gonna take the razor and we're gonna cut these out so that they're nice and smooth, so that's, not as much of it's gonna show through the fabric when it's tightly wrapped around it there. And on a side note, are you even doing a project if your gloves don't look like this? I don't think so. So as you can see here, I'm just gonna take a razor and we are just gonna kind of bevel these around here. This is another tedious step, but in the end, it's gonna make the final product look a lot better. So we cut off all the extra with the razor, and now they're still a little bit rough. So what you can do is just take a screwdriver or anything smooth like this, and you wanna kind of create an edge on this, so you push all the edge inward and it gives it a really smooth round circle there. And this is just to add to the finished product on these, because when you do it like this, when we wrap the material around it, you don't want any of the edges on things you cut sticking out there, because you want that smooth look on this tube. And that's something that does end up working really well. And on to the next step, we're actually just taking this piece of wood here because we need something to staple into when we start using this fabric, because simply the cardboard is just not going to be that great for that. So I threw some glue on here, and we just need this one single strip because all the seams are going to, end up in one single place. So I'm going to put that in there, and then likely my wife is coming in here to see if I'm planning on spending the whole weekend out here drilling holes in a tube, or possibly coming in to eat supper. I probably continue to drill holes in a tube. What I'm cutting here is just some linen fabric I picked up off Amazon. It comes in a big roll, plenty to do several projects, and it creates a good first layer for holding everything together and holding everything in. And then what's going to come after this is a product from Sound Assured. It's a really nice 2-layer product that gives a really good finished look. What I'm doing here is just trying to get a tight wrap around this tube. It doesn't have to be perfect, as the other fabric is a lot thicker, so it's going to cover up any sort of wrinkles, any of that. You could iron this out, but it really wasn't necessary here because, one, as you'll see after I get going a little bit further and get this really stretched, you're not going to see any wrinkles on this because you can pull this stuff really tight. And we're going to try to utilize that seam, the piece of wood that we have running down the middle, and that's where that seam is going to be. The technique I'm using here is simply that kind of pull the fabric over the top and try to get a really good stretch on it. We're going to be pulling it from the top and bottom, as I'll show you guys later too, so you'll see how that goes. Then just staple it on down. First we need to do the sides, and then we'll move on to the top and bottom of this one as well. My suggestion would be to double up the layers like this. First this thin linen layer, and then another one over the top of whatever you want that final product to look like. I use that Sound Assured, which does a fantastic job of keeping everything in. If you're using glass fibers, you don't want that stuff getting into your ear. We're not going to be using glass fibers today. We're actually going to be using wool. So we're not going to worry about that, but it's just something to keep in mind for anyone who has sensitivities to things in the air. And as you can see here, if you pull these tight, all the wrinkles are gone. For the top part, we obviously can't staple it because it would just be going right into cardboard. So we'll be using this fabric tape, double-sided tape. So we'll just put that around the top. And then we will build to just fold the fabric over it. And this is essentially a permanent tape for fabric. And what I like to do is I use my heat gun on it, and that makes it about 100 times as sticky. And it's gonna hold onto this fabric really well. So I just bust out the old heat gun, I heat this tape up. Plus it's kind of cold out here. It's a heated shop, but we're not warm outside, and well, I'm not paying to heat this baby up to 70 degrees at all times. So the tape isn't quite as sticky as it could be. Heat it up and it is as sticky as you'd ever need it to be. Apply a little bit of heat and then just really pull some tension on these, and it's going to stick fantastically. This stuff won't go anywhere, and it's going to give you a really, good looking finished product. This isn't the last time we're going to use this tape either. It's going to come in handy when we're doing some of the finishing work on the acoustic transparent fabric that I have also. You won't be seeing any of this through the fabric that's going to go over it. There, just like that. Looks pretty good. I decided to pull it to iron because I didn't want to deal with any wrinkles when I'm trying to get the smooth finish on this. And then when you get done with that, just, take out your drywall tools and start cutting your fabric. I don't think I have a career in dressmaking in the future. All right, another fun part here. We're gonna first put the staples in right over the top of the same seam that we used previously. That's just gonna make this a little bit easier to hide when we'll hide all this seam. There'll be a separate piece that's cut here. But we wanna be able to take advantage of that piece of wood that I have inside here for stapling. I'll just try to get it somewhat even. This one we have to be a little bit more careful about how we stretch this, because this is the final piece, so we want it to look good. Now more the part that makes me a little bit nervous. Best way I've found to do this is to gradually work your way around the tube, essentially. Just start pushing all the fabric away from you and try to keep it somewhat pinned down. It has a little bit of moisture in it from when I was just ironing it, so that helps a little bit for getting some grip on this. So far it's looking really good. From this point we're gonna have to also pull from the top and bottom. So that is going to help a lot as well here. So you don't have to get it quite perfect with this, but you wanna have a good amount of tension. Like this should feel pretty well stretched around it. And it's easy to do if you use this technique. Just move the fabric. Hi.
Emily's gonna be here like 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. If you go in front of the camera, you'll be on the camera. Look.
It's recording?
Yeah. Go look at it. Say hi. Starting to get to the end here, finally.
We need to put the trampoline up again.
It's too cold yet, hon?
Yeah, I was gonna say when
Oh,
it gets
okay.
warmer.
When it gets warmer, I will. Okay. We have snow forecasted for
Say hi
tonight,
to the
and she's
camera.
asking when I can put the
Look in there.
trampoline up. This sounds pretty typical at my house. I didn't see any of the things that my daughter was doing with this hammer till the edit, so I thought this was pretty funny here. She goes from checking the hammer on the floor, to then tapping it on her head, to then her knees. I guess just checking her reflexes. Can you grab me my heat gun? It's that white thing up there, hon. Yellow thing, sorry. You're blocking the camera, hon. Can you stand over here? You're blocking some riveting tape heating. We don't want people to miss the tape heating, do we? They don't care. I'm just joking. Now we need to tape this too because we can't put staples in. We could, but it would just be held by the cardboard. So I prefer to use this tape again. Keeps everything a little bit cleaner. Never in my life did I imagine that I would be using so much fabric tape. Or buying fabric tape in general, I guess. I have to say that all the times that I've used an iron in the last many years has been speaker construction, though. I'm not sure. Oh, maybe once. Maybe once I've used them on clothes, but not very often that I have an iron out for clothes. It's usually veneer work. Today it was taking some of those wrinkles out of the fabric. All we're going to do is fold it over. We're going to try to pull these tight. Actually did a really good job just wrapping it around the sides, so I'm not too worried about how tight this gets, but this will help just a little bit more. When you're doing this, you want to make sure you get a continuous kind of pull on this because you want this to be kind of smooth. There's going to be a piece of wood here, but you don't want a bunch of like pull lines of like different amounts of tension going across there. The top part's easier than the other. This one we can staple because another piece of maple is going to go underneath here, so none of this is going to be, you're not going to see any of this. So pull it tight, and once again, you really want to make sure that you get kind of even tension around this whole thing, because if you don't get even tension, you're going to get these wavy lines down here that just won't look that good. So basically use more staples than you think you might, than you think you maybe should. You can see how the tape holds that all inside there, what all of that looks like. And you can see that it's smooth the entire way around it. You can see just a little bit of the circles coming through, but I think that actually kind of gives it a cool look. That's another reason why I did the precise grid pattern, because I actually wanted it to look uniform. Can't leave that ugly seam on there, so we got to come up with something for that. And that's really easy to fix. You just need another piece of fabric that goes over the top. And that one's going to have double-sided tape on both sides. It's going to give a little more padding, so you're not going to see any of those staples as well. You're going to see this little patch, but it's on the back of it, and honestly, it looks pretty clean. I am happy with it on the other one I made, so we're doing it again. And if you don't like it, you are welcome to come up with another idea. When I was doing this, I discovered that the razor, although it's a lot faster and easier, it doesn't quite give it a nice of a look on that. It frays a little bit more than the scissors gives it more of a clean cut line. And then we're just throwing on more tape like we do here. And you want to pull this tight so that the tension matches the rest of the fabric. And that's going to help for it to blend in a little bit better. So like I said, this is going to be on the back of it. We'll never see it. And the seam is actually pretty clean there. I don't mind that. You could have done some other things. You could have wrapped it away where it overlapped and used fabric on that. But the way I did it, at least I know the fabric is secure and it's pretty clean and it's on the back of it. Time to pull out the router again, and that's to create the tops on these. And it's a two-piece top, so this ply is gonna go inside of it, and then there'll be this nice piece of maple that goes on top. The maple came from a different project I had that I sort of scrapped. I wasn't gonna go with a hardwood here, but I had some stuff available and I didn't have any use for it, so I went with it. For a finish, I went with Odie's oil. It's a really simple to use finish. It's solvent free, it's food safe, it's about as easy as it gets. You just rub it in, give it some time to set up, and then you want to completely rub it off. And you don't want to use too much product. A little goes a long ways. What I'm doing here is actually, I'm using more than I would even need to, but I'm just trying to speed it up. So you just rub it in with like a Scotch pad. I'm using a white one. Then I'm going to come back and I'm just going to wipe all that off. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a preview of what this will look like. You can see that nice shine on there. It gives it a really good look. And the best part about this is if there's ever a scratch or anything like that, you don't have to sand it all off completely. You can just do a touch-up. It's super easy to use. What I'm doing here is I'm putting in the base piece so I have an idea of how everything will fit. Then I'm just going to take the maple piece, glue it up, And I'm gonna sit it on top of here and just sort of find the fit that I want with this. And then I'll let that set up, and then I'll move on to the bottom piece where I'm just gonna glue it, set it on top of there, get it lined up how I want it, and let it sit. Okay, now on to what I like to call unnecessary steps, but just do it because you want to do it. I got a bunch of sand left over from doing some of the stands I built previously. So I'm gonna weight down the bottom of these because it can't hurt to have these bottom heavy rather than top heavy. You might want to use these as a plant stand or put anything on there. And it never hurts when you're dealing with audio equipment to have a little bit of weight. So we're just gonna take some of this sand, put it at the bottom of these so it gets a few extra pounds at the bottom. We're actually gonna use this sand for one more step in a little bit as well. I just bag it up in garbage bags. Put it in a couple of them. And we're simply gonna drop it in there. And that's just gonna add a lot of weight to the bottom of this, so it won't be tippy. It's pretty good now when you see you hit it. Plus when all the insulation goes in there, that'll add a bunch of weight too. This is wool from a company called Havelock wool. It's good because it's non-toxic, there's no formaldehyde issues, you don't have the glass fiber coming through the air, it's just simply wool. So if you're looking for that air solution, it's a good one for that. The difficulty with this one is this stuff is not easy to cut. The actual wool fibers do not cut very well, and I was going through some different ideas on this. I was thinking about even cutting circles like this on each one of these because I have quite a few of these, and I was just going to drop them in one after another in there so that would be really, you know, just a perfect fit, no compression. But what I found works pretty well on this one is you can actually wind these up pretty tight so you can slide it down the tube, then just let it all uncompress once it gets in there. And the fit, it's maybe slightly tight, but it uncompresses so that this is actually, there's barely any compression here. So it should function just how we want it to. So you just roll it up like a sleeping bag and drop it into our friend over here. Keep it tight and then let it all uncompress once it gets in there. Now when it gets in there, you can let it all open up. It actually opens up to just about its full size, to almost a perfect fit on this. With this size of tube anyways. Depending on your tube you pick, your results may vary a little bit. But it's full in there, but at the same time, I think it's all right. We're gonna be good here. There's been a number of tests where people made bass traps and they actually used the shrink wrap that they came in, you know, when you buy it from the store, and never even took them out of that and just placed it in the corners of the room. Not something I would probably do. That's a little more industrial than I'm looking for, but it just goes to show it isn't always about perfection. You can do something like this and this fits in here nearly perfectly. Sure, you can maybe get maybe an inch more out of each one of these for as far as uncoiling this, but if you want, you could cut it so it's a little bit of a better fit, but this is good enough for me. I was gonna go with the other method was good enough, but I found that with these scissors I had here, it actually cut this stuff okay, so I took it out again, and I'm cutting just a little bit off. Keep everyone happy. It's not gonna be too full that way. It's gonna be fully uncompressed inside the tube. Don't want too many comment warriors to come after me today. Honestly, I don't really care. You can come after me all you want. But if you do, I expect to see a link to your video building yours as well. I think it's going to be new scissors day after these. These things are going to be shot. Once again, we'll just wind it up and drop it in. I'll give you guys a look in just a second. There, we're still using all the space, but everything is fully decompressed inside of it, as you guys can see right here. Looks pretty good. We'll just do the same with the little extra piece I cut, and we'll be good to go for this part. Looks like we're ready to trap some bass or something. We'll have to clean it up a little bit with a vacuum. Maybe a lint roller. A lot of sawdust on it and some wool fibers when I was shoving it in there. That looks pretty good. Another totally unnecessary step, but one I'm gonna do. Just taking some of my leftover linen, wrapping it up in the top here. A little more finished look, even though no one's ever gonna see in here, and kind of seals it up nicely. Seems like everyone out there has a base trap that's just sitting on the ground. So I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I got this steel plant stand. It's adjustable from somewhere around 12 to 15 inches, which should be plenty for what we're doing here. Just throw some T15s in here. It's adjustable. We'll have to make some adjustments probably once I get it into the actual listening room. We're gonna do something else with this though, beyond just the stands. The sand is coming back. Basically, I just want to use up all that sand I have. But it is useful. Less prone to tipping you can make things, the better. Heavier things are, less vibrations. And it's cheap and it's simple. I usually use sand. A lot of people use lead shot. You can use cat litter. You can use anything you want, I guess. I probably wouldn't use anything that absorbs water so much unless it's going to be sealed up. Could open you up to some troubles down the road. In reality, that's probably fine too. Basically, all these tubes, they're hollow. We can't do anything about the center sections because that would spill out, but the tubes are sealed. So we can just pop these off. Maybe we'll pop them off. Grab some of my hi-fi sand, only the highest fidelity, Home Depot. Whoops, a little much. Get some taps to get it down. Seal her up. And repeat that 4 times. Won't make you watch it. There, this is sort of the last look you guys are going to see of these before they come inside. I'm going to have to clean them up, get some of the dust off, the sawdust, the sand off the stands. And then I will get them ready, put them inside, and you guys will see how these fit in the space. And I'm lucky I did a lot of this cutting yesterday because if we look outside, snow, which, fantastic, right? So there you guys have it. That's how I built these DIY base traps. You can do a lot of different varieties here. You can do more of the triangle shaped ones that'll fit into your corners. Those are probably easier to make, but I wanted to do something a little bit more interesting. And it wasn't exactly how I planned to spend the whole weekend, but you know, it's kind of cool doing it like this. You can just build it how you want it, and I think that this is really unique, and I think it's a step above a lot of what's offered out on the market, and it was done at a fraction of the price. You guys can do this in a variety of different ways. I just hope that this gives you more ideas on how you can do these types of projects. It doesn't have to be cut and dry, done like this, the same as every single other person. You can look for things that work for you and work for your space and go from there. Now I want to give you guys a final look on this now that I have them installed in the room here. So I'll give you guys a good look. All right, here's the first one. Got them tucked away already, so it's a little bit harder to see, but we have the nice maple top up here. Fits right into the corner. We go under here, we can see these stands, which I think the stands added a really nice touch to this whole thing. Makes it look a lot more professional, and that's kind of one of the things that make these look unique too, I think. The fabric turned out really nice. It's stretched. You can see the holes slightly, which I think actually gives it kind of a cool look. You can use these for all kinds of things. I have the one over here acting as a plant stand right now. So you can see that. Same thing in the corner. You can put lights up here, plants, whatever you want. They're really sturdy. Each stand came out to be roughly about 40 pounds. So they're pretty heavy, and they're definitely not top heavy, so you don't have to worry about anyone tipping them over. Well, that's about it, guys. I've got a lot of good stuff coming up still. As you can see, I got a nice haggle in. Got my audio lab there, and even the DMP A10. So stick around, got a lot more great videos coming, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Later.